Welcome, everybody, to this episode of Beers with Bill. It's my pleasure tonight to welcome back Taylor Robertson, STEM on Point, for the launch of her collab at Counterpoint, and Graham Kobayashi from Counterpoint, the owner and founder. And welcome, Justin, to Beers with Bill. It's a pleasure to have you on our show.
Thank you very much. Excited to be here.
Taylor, do you want to talk to us a little bit about your beer, since we're going to start with the STEM on Point Amber Ale?
Yeah, for sure. So Graham approached me after the last show I did with Bill and wanted to do a collab, which I was very excited about doing. I'd never brewed a beer before, so I thought that was an incredible opportunity to learn something new and make something that I love. So I wanted to do one to focus on women in STEM, name the beer after it and whatnot. The idea I had behind it was I wanted the beer to, in a sense, embody a woman in STEM. I wanted the beer to be bold, strong, and fitting of its time. So I guess it's kind of starting to lean into being fall now. So I wanted to do an amber. Bill was very surprised that I didn't pick a sour, as sours are my favorite style of beer, but I just didn't see how sour and women in STEM went together. To me, that kind of would just put the wrong taste in your mouth. So I went with an amber. I wanted, as I mentioned, it to be strong. So we did a 7% amber. It's oak aged, and Justin was kind enough to come up with the recipe for it. He did a phenomenal job. I helped out with all the brewing process. I'm sure Justin could go in more of the specifics than I could with that process, but I had a wonderful time doing it, and I hope you enjoy it.
I'm absolutely enjoying this. After the show, I'm gonna finish the bottle off, and you're right. I was surprised you went with an amber.
Yeah, I surprised myself a bit too, because if I had been asked this at any other time to have the opportunity to brew a beer, I would have jumped all over trying to make a sour. So
I'm sure you would have. So what's it like living the dream?
Intense. It's very on your toes. We don't get schedules till very late at night. So we don't know if we're waking up at 6 a.m., 5 a.m., 9 a.m. until like midnight the night before. I'm on day 2. I'm just finishing off day 2 right now. The competition will be a week long, so I'll be here for the rest of the week. And lots of exciting events will be taking place over the course of that time. So,
well, we all wish you all the best. We are all rooting for you. This is such an honor. This has been like a lifelong passion for you, hasn't it?
It was something I put on my bucket list when I was 12 years old. I had honestly discounted that I would ever get to doing it, and the opportunity just came up, and I said, screw it. Why not give it a shot? The worst that can happen is I can try and make a difference with women in STEM and break down some more barriers. So that's what my goal is here. That's what I'm doing. And at the end of the day, that's what I hope to walk away with.
Again, we wish you all the best. So Derek had a question. He's wondering how long you aged this in oak for.
Ooh, that's a good question. That's a bit of a marketing thing on our end, a tricky marketing thing. We mimicked oak aging, and we used oak spirals instead.
Okay.
So it imparts quite a bit of flavor. We actually have to be careful how long we leave them in there, because it can over oak the beer. So it was only actually probably 3-4 days on the oak spirals, but we didn't want to put oak spiral beer on there. Oak age sounded a lot better.
Yes, that it does. That it does. Why the decision to go with oak spirals? I mean, like, why the decision to go with oak to begin with?
When I met up with Justin and Graham and we were kind of spitballing ideas, that was one of the suggestions that came up, and thought it was fitting. with the style of beer as well as the season, and would work well with some of the malts Justin had suggested. So.
And I take it you're really happy with the way it all came out?
I am. I gave a taste test to Scott, who is unfortunately not here tonight, but gave a taste test to his hockey team, and they were all very impressed that I helped make the beer.
What was the most surprising thing in the process of making beer for you?
How little time it took. I was expecting, like, there were obviously periods of waiting in between certain steps, but I was expecting to be go, 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 go for hours and hours and hours. And it was, I don't know off the top of my head how many steps, but yeah, it was a lot more straight to the point than I expected it to be.
I'm going to ask Justin a similar question later on, but with everything that's been going on for you for the last few months, how are you staying grounded?
Honestly, I've been trying to just take time for myself. If I have been getting overwhelmed, I will just take a night, take a bath, read a book, watch a silly rom-com movie, and just try and decompress. Because yeah, the past couple months have been really crazy. Starting to get some gray hairs up in here. But yeah, just taking time for myself, which is something that I forget to do from time to time.
You are far too young to be getting gray hair.
That's what my mom was telling me, but I have pictures of my hair to prove otherwise.
What book would I find on your night table right now?
Currently, it is still Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. As I mentioned the last time I was on the show, my partner Scott and I have been working through some of the classics again. Reading is something that in 2021 was one of my goals to do more of. I had a love for reading growing up. I would go through books and books and books every single month. I'm pretty sure my mom's crawl space is still filled with books. But as I've gotten older, I've had less and less time to set aside for reading, and I'm trying to do more of that. So something I'm still working towards, as you can see by the fact that I'm still on only a couple 100-page book a couple months later. But hopefully once the competition's all done, work settles down, I can get back to reading some more.
What's been the hardest hurdle for the last little while?
Ooh, making time to work out. The space that I'm living in currently is small. I'm still pretty hesitant to go back to the gyms, and just trying to keep active, keep healthy, find time to make dinners instead of ordering food in. Definitely that.
What's been the best thing that's happened in the last little while?
I think the competition. This is something I never expected to do. I definitely accomplished more than I ever thought I could with it already. And it's been an amazing experience so far. All of the girls here are so talented. It is very humbling. So it's quite the experience.
What would you like all of us to take away from the conversation tonight? Because I'm eventually going to slip over to Justin and Graham.
Yeah,
so
absolutely. If you had the chance to read my blurb about STEM on Point and my story behind STEM on Point, I believe it was posted with the announcement of the beer on the Counterpoint Instagram. Just the messaging in that story that there is such a shortage of women in the workplace, and it leaves an environment that's not very supportive of women entering that. And I'm doing my best to change that, but it's going to take both men and women creating more awareness, really, and encouraging younger women. So if you have any daughters, little sisters, nieces, etc., inspiring them to do an extra science experiment, do some more math problems, and pursue STEM and help get more women out in those workplaces.
So after clearing out this bucket list, what's the next thing for Taylor?
My bucket list is quite long, so I don't know that I can clear it out. Next for me, though, would be focusing on my job. I kind of started it at a very hectic time and got thrown into a really big project, which is moving into its second stage. So really putting all my effort into that, moving forward, and then just kind of getting my wits about me to start 2022, because that's right around the corner. So yeah.
Taylor, thank you for taking time out of a very, what I would imagine, hectic schedule to join us this evening and talk to us about your beer. I am so happy that you agreed to do that. When Graham told me about it, I was like, yes. So from everybody at Beers with Bill, Taylor, we wishing you all the best, and may your dreams all come true.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me again. I love being on the show. This is an excellent community of beer lovers that I'm happy to be a part of. So thank you for including me in it.
Oh, it's our pleasure to have you here. And Justin, which beer are we going to try next?
I was thinking next logical choice would be your beer, if that works.
Okay.
Yeah.
We'll start with the 8 o'clock Bach now.
We're 13 minutes late for the 8 o'clock Bach.
I know, but I wanted to talk to Taylor first because I wasn't even sure if she was going to be able to join us. And then I wasn't sure if she did join us, how much time she would have. Yeah. And besides, she's much nicer looking than I am. She's far more engaging with everybody, and she made an excellent beer. Cheers, Taylor.
Thank you. I unfortunately don't have a beer with me, but I'm sure Scott's enjoying the last of them at home.
We really should have planned to ship up a 4-pack to you.
That would have been nice, but yeah, no worries.
Justin, you want to talk to us about the beer? Sure. Yeah, it's kind of funny talking about all four of these beers actually, as they were all collabs, which is kind of fun. So I don't like it. It's kind of neat because it's all the different people, different ideas coming together. It's nice. So obviously we did this one with you. Yeah. The direction at the beginning of this was to make a Bach, and we kind of rolled around a couple different ideas because a couple different Bachs we could have went with, and we were thinking about what flavors we were looking for, some cool and exciting things we could do, and we kind of landed on a stronger, darker Bach, hence the Doppelbock style. Kind of rolled around what that might look like, put together a bit of a recipe, sent that off to you, Bill, and yeah, got the ball rolling there. Yeah.
Yes, I remember you fired off the recipe, and I'm looking at it, and I'm like, yeah, that's exactly the way I would want it to be.
Awesome, that's great. Yeah, it was. It's a fun one. Not one I would have expected to be doing at Counterpoint, but very happy that we did it, and I really like the way it turned out as well. So. Very nice.
It's turned out really well. I know that both of us, when we tried it right off the word, it was like, okay, this is interesting.
Oh yeah,
and different.
Yeah. We had there's quite a few malts in this one, including a few malts that we hadn't necessarily worked with before. So I think what you're referring to, Bill, is the chocolate malt.
Yep.
Note that we found. So we were working with a different chocolate malt than what I had worked with in the past. And there was an aroma coming from the beer as it was being like freshly brewed.
Yep.
And we couldn't quite place it. I think your description for it was probably the best. I'll let you tell it if you recall. But
Well, I said we're working on the Poulet Fumé, which is the French term for barnyard.
Yeah, which is a little scary to hear. Barnyard in a clean style of beer. We didn't want that coming through. Luckily, I do think that was just kind of the warm smell from the fresh malt. With darker beers, of course, all those specialty malts that come together kind of take a little while to kind of introduce themselves to each other and kind of layer themselves in a nice way. And I do think it's there's no more barnyard in there. It's that part kind of hidden away, which is nice.
No, there still is a bit of earthiness in this one, which I really like. But yes, the Poulet Fumé was going to dissipate anyways. I'm not sure Graham was impressed when I said that. Graham, what was your reaction?
The barnyard comment.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, yeah, same sort of thing. It's always interesting to taste beer along the way during the process. And it doesn't quite, if you do it, once while you're brewing, it doesn't tell you a whole lot. But if you do it, I find repeatedly with every batch, then you kind of get these checkpoints along the way of the progress of how the beer is made and what comes through, what doesn't come through, and that kind of thing. So, I mean, yeah, I was probably a little bit thrown off by that at first because I think you were the first one to smell and taste it, and then, but yeah, you get it to your nose and it did smell like raw, sort of farmy, I don't know, earthy, funky stuff. So I'm glad that fermented out. Justin was predicting the future quite well.
He definitely said that would not last very long. All that. So Justin, lots of books behind you. What book would I find on your nightstand tonight?
Oh, on the nightstand, probably a stack about this big, depending on my mood. But I've got a book about historical beers in there, specifically a lot to do with Kvike and some of the new research on that. Fiction, I've got a book by Chuck Palahniuk that I'm rereading called Rant. It's a weird one, but I like it. And my partner and I are actually expecting in February, so there's like 3 or 4 baby books mixed in there that when I'm not terrified of that, I read those.
Well, congratulations.
Oh, thank you very much.
So you came into beer in a roundabout way.
Yes, yeah, which would probably explain some of the books behind me as well. I got into beer like a lot of brewers by homebrewing. But before that, I spent the better part of a decade in local museums here, and before that, history. So,
so what was it like to make that decision to literally go professional in beer brewing?
A little scary, because I'm sure, like most homebrewers, everybody kind of gets into a new, fun, exciting hobby, and sooner or later, the idea kind of creeps into the back of your mind to maybe make it a little bit more than a hobby. And then, there's a little bit of doubts and stuff because most of the people that drank the beer I made prior to going professional were friends and family. So they had a lot of positive things to say, but you always wonder, how much of that is bias and how much of it is actually that they like the beer. And then, of course, like the unknown of kind of leaving a career that you work towards to start over again. So it's a little scary. But I was in my late 20s and I figured it was kind of a good time to jump because if I didn't jump, I'd just keep going that way. So
what was it like going to Niagara?
Oh, Niagara was great. Yeah. It was a fun program. Supposed to be 16 months, but I was one of the unfortunate few that, pandemic ruined things for a lot of people, but it really shook things up at the program as well. So extended the program a little bit, and the ending was a little bit wonky, but overall, I was fortunate enough to have more or less 3 full terms or 3 full semesters unaffected by the pandemic. So that was good. Met a lot of interesting people, colleagues and faculty, and really got a good taste of how interconnected and friendly and supportive the industry is. So it was a good little primer to jump in.
So what would that have been like when the pandemic hit for brewing in class?
Yeah. So that was the big question. So it was March when everything kind of went sideways, and the first message from the school was that we got essentially an early March break. So we kind of sent on our way. We're told we'd readdress in like a week or two, and we'd come back at it. So I was actually working at the school as well in the lab. So I was responsible for getting everybody's yeast together for all the terms actually. So it was a little scary because as I'm sure most of you know, yeast is a living organism that has to be kind of babied and taken care of a bit if you want it to perform well. So being told that I had to walk away from everything for 2 weeks was a little scary in that way. As everybody knows, 2 weeks kind of turned into who knows how long, 2 years now, or coming up on, is it? Yeah. So yeah, we kind of just finished up the semester kind of haphazardly. We took our grades that we had accumulated to that point and kind of made that worth the biggest chunk and just had a bit of an exam. So that the end of that semester was a bit of a write-off. The summer was then canceled. We didn't do a summer term. And that gave the school some time to kind of get things together for the fall term. And for that, we went back to class 1 day a week, or 2 days a week rather, one for brew day and one for beer tasting class. Big priorities, which is good. But it was strange because, we still had the face shields and stuff. And for those of you that haven't been to the Niagara College Teaching Brewery, it's quite a small space as well. And there's about 20 of us in each class. So fitting 20 students and 4 or 5 faculty members into a small space during COVID was definitely a challenge. And yeah.
So what's been the hardest thing for you to overcome through COVID?
Actually, you know what? I count myself very fortunate. I got this great job during COVID. I entered a new industry. The beer world is interesting in that a lot of us still got to go to work every day, which was a blessing for a lot of reasons. It helped distract and things like that. But yeah, I think some of the social aspect was missing. I was very excited to enter into this new industry, and the beer community is very social. And especially early days of COVID, that was kind of gone. But there's things like this that help with that. So that's been good.
You see Taylor's comment, eh? So they have a beer drinking tasting class. She went into the wrong profession.
Yeah, at least one every semester. There was a couple semesters where we had 2. So, yeah.
So how did you and Graham meet?
Actually, long time customer. I've been going since early days of Counterpoint. Before working there, they were one of my favorite breweries. I enjoyed going. I liked the whole rotating tap list thing. And yeah, we just chatted a lot when I went in to buy a beer.
Excellent recovery there about, that with Graham sitting there listening.
Oh yeah, my job's still very much on the line. So
Graham, is that true? His job's still very much on the line? He's not going to answer you on that one, is he?
No. Doesn't want to commit.
What's been the best thing
Nice.
that's happened through COVID for you, besides the job at Counterpoint?
Probably my partner and I expecting. That's been really exciting. And so, I mean, that's the cheesy answer, but very excited about that.
I get this, your super secret probations being discussed on the sidelines there, just so you know.
Nice.
When you were at the college, what was your favorite style of beer to brew?
Ooh, probably still my favorite style, even today, would probably be saisons. Light, dry, crushable saison. That would be my favorite.
You're in the right place for that, aren't you?
Oh yeah, we've I think they're liked among other things at Counterpoint, which is good.
How do you and Graham decide what to brew?
Probably in one of our many daily/weekly meetings, depending. One of the great things about Counterpoint is the flexibility of a small team. We can pivot very quickly, and that allows us to be creative and we plan ahead, but we definitely pivot a lot as well.
You plan ahead?
A little bit.
A little bit. Okay.
Yeah.
Graham, you had some exciting news I saw yesterday on Instagram. Can you want to talk to us a little bit about that?
Can you remind me?
A new piece of equipment?
Oh, that little fella. Yeah. Yeah. Took a leap and purchased a jacketed unitank. So that will help us. Doesn't necessarily help us make more beer, but it'll hopefully help us improve the quality of our beer and keep things a little more consistent. We'll be able to, instead of going from our fermenters to fill a keg, to force carbon each keg individually, cold crash and carbonate our beer in the unitank. So got that in this little old rusty glycol unit from another brewery, used from another brewery, which should do the trick. And so we've yet to set it up. We're getting a couple more parts and things together, and then that'll be the next project.
Taylor, were you surprised having to brew 2 batches to make your beer?
Yes, I was actually. I did not know that was how the process worked, but it was great that I got to join in for half of it. On that note, I meant to add this in. I wasn't sure if I was allowed to add it in or not yet, but to add on quickly to your what's next question, I will actually be joining the team at Counterpoint as their front of house staff when Lauren goes on mat leave. So.
Oh, congratulations. Now know where to find you on a regular basis.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's great news. Justin, which beer are we going to try next?
I was actually thinking, you can change my mind if you'd like, about going to the IPA next, saving the sour for last.
Okay, we'll do the IPA next.
Awesome.
Going to talk to us a little bit about it?
Yep, just very unorganized. Sorry about that. Trying to keep up with the chat. Just to address that as well, we have a 3.5 barrel unitank, so it's a little bigger than we need, but that gives us a little bit of flexibility and yeah, fits a whole batch and then some.
Justin's gonna have to start triple batching it.
Oh boy. Perfect. Okay, so for the IPA, this one was a fun one. Another collab. So this one we worked together with a couple of my buddies over at Escarpment Labs. We have a good working professional relationship at Counterpoint with Escarpment Labs. We get quite a bit of our yeast from them. And then on a personal note, 2 of my friends from school that were in my class both ended up getting employed at Escarpment. So it's funny, they're very excited about the job. They love their job, but they kind of joke all the time that they don't get to use their education because we were educated as brewers, and there they are farming yeast. So that's where the name comes from, using my education. My buddy Tom gets all the credit for that one. Using my education. Sorry about that. So this one was a bit of a fun one. My buddies had been in and tried a few of the beers that I was brewing at Counterpoint, and they were quite happy with Treetop Symphony. I'm not sure if anybody here has had that beer. It's really funny because this beer is almost nothing like that. But that was the original inspiration for it. We kind of were using that IPA as a baseline. But Escarpment had just come out with a new and exciting product, Hydra Yeast. It's a hybrid yeast between, I think it's Vermont and Cerebris, so 2 of their other strains, and they were kind of trying to get the best out of both worlds. They were marketing it as hazy beer yeast, bringing different flavors, lots of tropical notes and things like that. with low flocculation, meaning a lot of the yeast is still in suspension, and eliminating hop creep. So hop creep is when you dry hop a beer, there's just a tiny bit of sugar in there, and when you add those hops to a beer that's either partially fermented or currently fermenting, or even at the end, it causes the CO2 to rush out of solution. It stirs up the beer a little bit, gets the yeast kind of back in solution, and then they go after that micro little bit of sugar that's possibly there. Not so much of a problem for us that we've found, but for some breweries that causes a partial fermentation, which can lead to off flavors and things like that. So this yeast was specifically trying to address that. Really long-winded. I'm sorry for getting really nerdy there, but that's their sales pitch. So yeah, we took our base recipe but adapted it to fit this yeast, and then we let our friends at Escarpment kind of pick and choose the hops. So we've got Sabro and Eldorado in this one.
I was going to ask that if you had Sabro in there, because I get that
yeah.
distinct flavor.
Yeah.
So,
are you a fan of Sabro?
I'm learning to be.
Okay.
I'm learning to be. The first time I tried it, I wasn't 100% certain.
Yeah.
But now I'm kind of starting to appreciate the subtleness of it.
Nice.
So,
I think
I'm on my 20th time trying it, and I'm still trying to learn, Bill.
Not your favorite one, is it, Graham?
Not my favorite. We'll just put it that way. Yeah.
No. He was very excited when I mentioned the choice of hops for this one.
You kind of got that. You want to do what?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yes, the people do want Sabro. It is definitely a very hype hop at the moment. Yeah, it's. I feel like people either love it or hate it. It's got that coconutty vibe to it that some people. I mean, it's the same thing with coconut. People love or hate it.
It's not too bad in this beer. I find it's masked somehow, and surprisingly, because we've got about 2/3 Sabro, 1/3 Eldorado.
Yeah.
And, somehow it's it's blended well. So maybe Justin uses education to teach me to like Sabro.
Yeah.
It's an interesting combination, that's for sure.
So we had to like unhaze this IPA to make this yeast work, if that makes sense. So a lot of the things that we do to make hazy beers at Counterpoint, we had to not do them with this beer to make this yeast work. And it is still hazy, just in a different way.
Now that's interesting.
Yeah.
So you had to do the things you usually don't do.
You got it. Yeah. I think
wow.
Graham made the comment, and I love this comment. It's a good sales pitch for them too. If anybody's wondering how to get the haze in their beer without having to do some of the stuff that we do, this is the way to do it. Instant haze with this yeast.
I like Andrea's comment about the Zaka. Not necessarily face down through a field of oranges. Okay.
See, that's another divisive hop, but I quite like that one myself as well.
I like that almost tobacco tone of a Zaka.
Yeah. It's funny. I never caught that before you pointed it out, but I agree with you.
Just that it's that rich field of tobacco aroma, and it's like, wow, brings back memories of childhood and everything else. Because my dad would take me out to where he lived when he was a child, and he worked in tobacco fields when he was 10. He's from that generation where he was born during the Depression. So in the 40s, he worked in tobacco fields. And he took me, you have to learn to love this. And it was just like, well, yeah, it's a different smell than cigarettes.
Yeah.
So. What's your favorite craft beer bar or restaurant in the region?
Oh, that's a tough question. And but it's not at the same time. I live in Uptown Waterloo. So it is a very, very quick walk to Arabella Beer Park. And they have a great, fantastic lineup, like pretty much all the time, and great people working there. It's definitely high up on the list.
Who would you say is your role model?
Oh boy, I don't know. Jeez, that's a good question. I don't know if I can pick Just
You can talk about many people if you need.
no, I don't know. All kinds of different people for all kinds of different reasons. I'm drawing a blank on this one.
Says all of you can guess, Justin and I did not have a conversation last night, so he is totally unprepared for the
Yeah,
questions
sorry about
I
that.
asked.
I'll pick another cheesy one and choose my dad. He does taught me how to make sure you can learn how to do everything for yourself, and it's a good motto. Lets me tackle a lot of things, take on challenges like brewing and fixing my car and all that jazz.
So were you in your relationship when you decided to switch careers?
Yes, yeah. My partner and I have been together for 9 years. 9 years. Yeah, 9 years.
So what was the reaction when that decision was made?
Yeah, it was a bit of a conversation. It wasn't. I've been thinking about it for the better part of a year, I think, before I actually no, even longer. I toured the school 3 years before I went. It was an inkling of an idea for a long time, and my partner was very supportive in encouraging me to go for it. If it was good, she told me if it made me happy, just go for it. So, very supportive.
Now I've got to take a look at my list of questions.
Yeah, actually, there is one in the chat.
Derek has one in there that I usually would never ask that way.
Oh.
But who would be your favorite brewery after Counterpoint?
Okay, I do appreciate that because gotta say Counterpoint, of course, but of course non-Counterpoint brewery would be probably Shortfinger. Again, an easy answer. Very unique beer. You don't see many Ontario breweries doing what Rob does over there, and for that, I don't know. Good, cool barrel-aged sours, cool mixed culture stuff, and pretty great clean stuff too. Yeah.
Rob definitely does his thing.
Oh yeah,
and he's unapologetic about it.
Yeah, it's good though.
This one you can choose not to answer.
Okay.
That I have asked this different ways with everybody. Would you care to share with us what you might consider an epic fail in brewing?
There's a few. We could probably fill the rest of the conversation with that. I don't know. I think craft brewing is one of those interesting spaces where there's a lot of room for creativity, and creativity is great. And I think you should swing for the fences. I've made bad beer trying to do wild things that don't quite translate. So I definitely don't want to stop from someone from trying to make something cool. But I am not a big fan of lactose in beer. It's an easy one to poke fun at. I'm lactose intolerant, so that doesn't hurt. And I have been at more than one brewery where it is not labeled a lactose beer, and a few sips in, I realize, oh boy, this is full of it, and it really hurts the enjoyment of that beer. I'm all for it. I can see the appeal. I think it just should be labeled. Maybe, I don't know.
It should be labeled.
Yeah, and there's other cool things you can do in process to leave a sweet finish and full body and stuff like that. I think lactose can be leaned on a little too hard to do those things. Geez, now I feel like that makes me sound mean-spirited. But I don't know. I guess that would be it.
So what music do you listen to on your playlist?
Everything, anything and everything, from screamo stuff to 80s female-led pop. It's great. I think I annoy Graham sometimes at the brewery, depending on where my mood takes me.
That was going to be my next question. So how do the two of you work through the differences in musical taste?
I feel like sometimes I get there earlier than Graham and I just take over the radio, and he's not he lets me go with it for a while. Eventually he'll just walk over, not say anything, and just take over the music, and I understand it's required.
I was going to say, Graham, my dad used to do that. I would go down the barn and change the radio station because I did not appreciate the music he listened to. And he would show up and turn the radio back to his radio station and just look at me and walk away.
No, Justin and I actually surprisingly have pretty similar tastes in music, and then so I think it happens to everybody. You kind of get stuck in your rut of your few favorite bands and listen to them a lot, and it's great to have some new flavors introduced to the brewery playlist. And I only do it when I have like this, I don't know, song stuck in my head or something pops in my mind. I'm like, I really got to listen to that. And I'm like, sorry, gotta pop this in the queue, and then let Justin take over again. I'm not too picky.
I think Nick wins for playlist choices, though. If Ed, if you were asking about the playlist there, was it ABBA by chance?
Probably ABBA.
No, it was no ABBA. It was like I think it was just sort of a mix. I mean, there might have been some Broken Bells and kind of like stuff from different times,
Nice, yeah. I feel like Broken Bells is pretty constant for Graham and I, and most of the staff there too. It's it's a pretty good indie, like chill playlist. I like it.
This is Graham. Derek's curious how many people you have on staff now.
Yeah, so I don't know if many of you, or some of you might know, some of you might not, but I guess part of the reason, the only real reason Justin's here as well, is the brewery went through quite a transition during the last few months. Well, I guess the last 6 months or so. But Rich actually ended up leaving the brewery at the end of March, so that is why we have staff, more staff, I guess. So yeah, so I'd hired Nick, who I'm sure some of you have met, and Nick was great relief for a day a week, doing taps, and I guess initially just like bottle sales and packaging up deliveries and stuff like that. And then then hired Justin. When was that, Justin? Early June?
End of May.
End of May, yeah.
Yeah.
And then shortly after, Lauren, who was at Forefathers, and she still works there a couple days a week and works for us for the next few weeks. And so then we'll be leaving, but be a bit of overlap with Taylor. We're excited to have, as she mentioned, she'll be working a little bit for us, which is super cool. And she was a great brewer. I think she might have even worked harder than Bill, but
that wouldn't be hard to do, would it?
Were Bill's buckets as stinky as the ones I had to use?
No, you had some pretty raunchy farmers buckets. Yeah. That was just initiation.
So Graham, do you want to talk to us about the last beer, or you want Justin too?
Oh no, I'll let Justin. This is great. I feel like I'm part of the Beers with Bill gang, and I'm listening to a pro brewer, so I'll just soak it in.
Okay, we'll stick with Justin.
I'll
Justin,
answer
about the last
questions.
beer.
Yeah.
So this one was in the works before I got to Counterpoint. In that we wanted to use jackfruit for this collab. Sorry, just pouring this one here. Yeah, so another collab. It's Neil of I'm going to say this wrong. Is it Niam? Graham? Yep, perfect. Okay. She was looking to work with jackfruit. So actually, when I showed up, there was a small carboy sitting in the corner, nondescript, with a bunch of stuff just kind of floating in it. So I think one of my first days there, I was asking Graham, like, what's going on over there? Because it had been sitting there for like, I want to say we didn't talk about it for like a week or two. So what it was one of our pale ales, one that Graham had done. And we were testing how jackfruit would react with beer, how it would taste in beer. I had never had jackfruit before, so I had no idea what the flavor combination would be. And it was interesting. In the pale ale, it was kind of strange. It had like a savory aspect to it. And having never had jackfruit, I was kind of at a loss to try to place what that could be. So then tried a little bit of jackfruit, still thought that was kind of interesting. Wasn't sure what was going on there. And just so everybody knows, I can take zero credit for this beer. This is a base sour recipe that Graham put together, sour saison, and the rest of it is all Tennille. So she came up with what to add to it. So we've got the jackfruit, the ginger, and the lime in there. And when Graham was telling me about that, I thought this is either going to be really, really good or strange / terrible. And from the get-go, I was surprised at the flavor combination. We sat down with Neil and we did a little bit of dosing to figure out our rates for things. Some things we did, some things we didn't, some things we just kind of winged it. And the final product I was blown away by. I think it clocks in at like 7%. It does not drink like a 7% beer. It's a very dangerous 7%. Very drinkable. I can't do a lot of sours. Used to be able to. I got to be careful with how many I have now, especially simple sours like this. Nice. Interesting. But yeah, I think it all blends together quite well, and it's quite light.
It does. It's very well balanced for the flavors that are in it.
Yeah, it's kind of neat too to see how it's changed over time as well. I feel like the jackfruit was a little bit more present at the beginning, like when we first bottled it, and then it faded for some time in the middle there, and now actually tasting it, it's kind of come back up just a tad. I like it. That's good.
As you guys all know, we have a really pretty solid and long history with Tennille. She's one of our customers from, I don't know, the early days, we'll say, and we learned that she did, some amazing cooking, and so she had done a bunch of pop-ups, and they so they work with jackfruit quite well, and have introduced a lot of our customers to jackfruit. And so they've got not only I find the best way to process it for a meal, but also just a great sense of what it will blend with and what flavors it will go with. And of course, a big nod to sort of the Jamaican background of jackfruit here, with ginger and lime being a huge part of a lot of drinks from Jamaica, which is where Tennille is from, and brings a lot of that into their present recipes and cooking style.
So Justin, you've got a lot of things that have happened in the last year, and a new family on the way. So I have a question for you. And that is what's next for Justin?
I think tomorrow we're bottling. Next week, another beer to brew. But no, I think Counterpoint's a very good fit. It's kind of what I was striving to get to when I entered the beer industry not so long ago, which is an opportunity to try out different things with recipes and always kind of challenged with what's the next beer. I think I'm in the 20s for beers since I've been there, and no signs of slowing. So lots of recipes to develop and all that fun stuff, and get this Unitank up and running. Big projects.
Can you share with us the best advice you've ever been given?
Actually, it was probably with regards to entering the beer program. I'd been thinking about it for quite a few years. And I was looking everywhere online for comments about the program, whether it was worth your time, all that fun stuff. And actually, there was a brewer on there who mentioned he was actually kind of negative about the program, and had been talking about how maybe it's not worth your time, but had kind of left on the note that it's only worth your time if you make it worth your time. You go out there, you make the most of it, you look for opportunities and things like that. And yeah, I jumped off and did it. And when I went to the program, I kept that in mind and looked for every opportunity I could. Got a job in the lab, volunteered for everything there was to volunteer for, and yeah, it ended up being pretty rewarding, and I've taken it forward since then and kind of used that for an approach for a lot of things. Just make the most of it. You know, you get in what you get out what you put in, which is I know an old saying, but it contextualized in that way specifically with a big change helped me realize that.
Eric, curious, what was your first brew at Counterpoint?
Ooh, well, I did one with Graham where he did all the brewing and I just watched, but I don't think that counts. So the first recipe that came out of Counterpoint that was my own was Simple Solo, which was a very simple saison that came out. It was just supposed to be nice and approachable, nice and yummy. I was happy with the way it turned out. Yeah, it was just a very simple beer. There's some things that I'll make changes to next time it comes around. And then the one that I'm most proud of is actually probably Treetop Symphony. Like that one was that was a big nervous beer for me because for those of you that have been drinking at Counterpoint for quite some time, Counterpoint is known for, oh, thank you very much, Jason. For those of you that have been drinking there for a long time, hazy IPAs have always been good out of Counterpoint, and that was my first hazy IPA that I attempted at Counterpoint, and I was using Sabro, which Graham was a little less enthused about, but I was like, no, it's gonna work. So not only was I trying to make sure I made a good hazy IPA, but also using a hop that, you know, my boss wasn't so fond of. So, but you know what, it turned out great. I was very happy with it. It was a balanced beer. It was nice. And it went over pretty well too. So I think that would be my proud one for sure.
Nothing like knocking it out of the park when you've taken all kinds of risk, eh?
Oh yeah, exactly.
If you could spend this one day brewing or having a beer conversation with anybody, who would it be?
Oh boy, that is a really good question. I would want to go, this is also going to be like a lame answer, but I would want to go to Cantillon in Brussels, the famous Lambic Brewery, and just get my hands on that stuff. Like we did a tour when we were over there, and it is such a cool brewery producing a very unique beer. And I don't think I could limit it to one day. I'd want to be there for like a long time, especially like a blending process or something like that. That'd be really neat. But yeah, that would probably be top choice.
If you could travel back in time, what advice would you give your younger self?
Probably just get into brewing right away. Like 18-year-old Justin, just start home brewing and you know, open a brewery. Yeah, drink more beer. Maybe open a brewery in 2010. Hope for the best. Who would have predicted the crazy craft beer explosion and all the cool stuff? Oh, and probably give him a recipe for hazy IPAs. Maybe not too early though.
And if there's one thing you want all of us to take away from this conversation tonight, what would that be?
Oh boy.
Really putting the pressure on you now.
Yeah. I don't know. Beer is fun, but I think you guys all know that. Like, drink more beer. That's good. I don't know. I think it's neat. You know, it's things like this that make me excited to be in craft beer. You know, not only getting to make all this cool stuff and be involved with all these cool people, like 4 different collabs, 4 very different beers. I definitely see some of myself in all of these beers, but I see a lot of the people that I worked with as well, which is probably the most fun part about beer. It's you know, cool ideas, cool people, and sometimes they kind of come together and you get cool stuff. So beer's cool. Yeah. And collaboration is also cool.
Well, Justin, I want to thank you for taking time to share your story with us tonight.
Thank you.
Graham, it's been fantastic to have you back on the show. I'm really glad that we had the chance to do another collaboration together. Taylor, thank you for joining us tonight. All the best in your journey down the road. Everybody, Adam Wilson's joining us next week, Furnace Room Brewery. And then the rest of the month, Aaron Broadfoot's back. Matt from Reverence is going to be in to visit me. So we've got an exciting number of weeks coming up. Thank you all for joining in tonight.